Hello again, this is Jeremy Arney, interim leader of the Canadian Action Party, and this time I'm answering a question from Jim in North Bay. Jim, you asked about the oil sands development and you also asked about gas prices. Well, let's deal with gas prices first. One of the problems with oil and gas is that there's something called futures, just like there is in corn or wheat or whatever. And as usual, there is a company that spends a great deal of its time in futures of all kinds of commodities. The most lucrative commodity to be involved in is the oil commodity. And that is where Goldman Sachs has about 10 corporations between it and the wellhead, all of which develop their own little prices for the oil. So much as we would like to say we would put a limit on the amount of price that could be charged for gasoline, we can't really do that. What we have to do is, rather than get rid of or try and legislate the gas prices, is limit the number of the ability, I should say, to create futures in oil. Because it's at the moment it's a necessity for transportation, it should be not subject to the normal corporate deals of let's make profit, not here, not there, but everywhere, between the oil well head and the eventual consumer, which is the truck driver or the housewife going to get her groceries. It just simply is gouging left, right and center, and that's the way we get rid of it. We can't get rid of it by legislating prices, as I say. That just doesn't work. But what one can do is start dealing with the futures and regulating futures. On the subject of regulation, I would like to point out that this particular government is regulation crazy. Every law that they pass, at great speed I might add, with little or no debate on most of them, the regulations attached to that law are what they live by. Now, if you break a regulation, you're not actually breaking the law, so you don't go to court. By breaking a regulation, you in fact are subject to ministerial review if you want to fight it. And the ministerial review has no reasonable access to the law because it's only the regulation they're concerned with. So be very careful when you find, for instance, a policeman comes up to you and says that you've got the wrong lighting system on your vehicle, for instance. Now, are you breaking the law or are you breaking your regulation? And you can ask him that. What are you charging me under? If he says I'm charging you under the regulations, I think you will find that you can legally say you're not supposed to enforce the regulations. You're only supposed to enforce the law. Anyway, that's going off on a little bit of one of my own personal little bugaboos. Now the next question, which was a lot bigger, is that mess up near Athabasca. I confess that back in the late 80s, I used to go in there driving truck to pick up catalyst and take it down to Texas. And it wasn't that big back then, but it was big. I mean, not as big as it is now. And it seemed to be relatively under control. But look at it now. I mean, I know this is nearly 20 years later, but look at it now. Look at the water surrounding it. I keep hearing that some of those tailing ponds are actually under control, that the birds can sit on them and fish can live in them. I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe that the Indian people, and forgive me for calling them Indian people, but I'm not quite sure which band or tribe or nation they're from in Fort Chippewa, are all sick from cancer, and this has been getting worse and worse and worse since the tar sands started. No, give me a break here. There's something very wrong with this whole situation. But even worse than that is, why are we trying to ship this raw stuff out? Why aren't we demanding that the oil companies, and I'm saying the oil companies, develop refineries here in Canada? Refuse them permission to ship this bitumen out. Make them refine it here in Canada. That's another reason why eventually we could get prices come down. People say, oh, the government should build the refineries. No, the government isn't making money out of this. The oil companies are. They're the ones who should be denied the right to export it and be forced to produce a consumable product right here in Canada, made in Canada for Canadians, and if there's anything left over, by all means export it. So the upshot is that the environmental impact of the Athabascan oil sands, combined with the damage to, or lack of benefit, I should say, to the Canadian people, means that it really should be completely reconstructed, that it should be put on pause until it can be handled in a way that meets and satisfies everybody all over Canada, not only the people of Alberta, who are getting their water wells and everything else contaminated by this and by fracking, but that's another subject. Anyway, for now, I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much for it.